What up, everybody? Esoteric Eddie here. Namaste. If you've been watching any of my recent stuff, you know that every now and then I like to interview people. And my interviews have been like an ongoing development. I've been trying to figure out how I want to do these things. I'm trying to stay away from being like a full-on podcast, and just stick to documentaries. But I like to talk to people and interview people. And today I was blessed to see the homie Jeremy, Esoteric Gladiator. So I didn't have anything set to ask him, so we're just going to kick it and have a conversation for y'all and see where it goes. With that being said, thanks for cruising by.
Hey, you got it, man.
And I guess let's just start by telling the people who you are and what it is that you do.
Okay, my name's Jeremy Lifsey. I'm a tattoo artist by trade. I also did organic farming. And I'm a podcaster. I do the Esoteric Gladiator podcast. I also recently started making videos and posting those online on random topics, whatever I feel like. And I'm a traveler. I've been, this last time traveling, I've spent 18 months on the road, literally an American gypsy.
For real, man. Yeah. Let's take it back. So, all right, so you're a tattoo artist. You've been traveling the country. You've been to almost every state.
I don't know. I mean, I've been to a lot of states. I've been to probably over 30 or 40 states, maybe.
And from what I understand, you live out of your car, or?
Yeah, but I have friends and family and old clients all over the country. So, yeah, I do sleep in the car sometimes. I have a Honda Element, so it's like I have like a bed set up in there, and then I have a bunch of, like storable food and my tattoo equipment and stuff. And so I'll tattoo people in random states if they want to get tattooed or whatever. But sometimes I wind up sleeping in campgrounds or I've slept in the back of travel stop gas stations before, or rest areas, and it's cool. It's fun. I know how to do a lot of time by myself. So,
yeah. All right. Well, before we explore that part of your life, let's take it back. So, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Los Angeles, in Burbank and North Hollywood. I was born in '76. I'll be 47 in January. And I feel like it was a good time for America, but it was a bad time for me.
Yeah. Why do you feel that way?
Oh, I just, the areas that I lived in, and I mean, some of it wasn't that bad, like Burbank, it was like borderline North Hollywood, but I always tell people all my homies when I was growing up were skateboarders and gangbangers and taggers. But it was like my dad, he was a construction worker and he was an alcoholic and he had a blow habit. And so he was an angry construction worker. He's changed his life and I don't regret any of that stuff that I had to go through with him and in the neighborhoods and whatever. I'm grateful for all of that because I just see that a lot of that, I feel like it sharpened me as a sword, and it also sharpened my chess and street smarts.
What up, everybody? Esoteric Eddie here. I just wanted to interject real quick because there's about 10 minutes in the video where the audio started to cut out really badly and I couldn't save it. So I just wanted to briefly review what Jeremy was talking about during those 10 minutes. Basically, he said that he went to jail for about 6 years between the late 90s and early 2000s. And that was during his late teen years and early 20s. And while he was in jail, he basically had to side with the whites for some time. But then after a lot of fights and riots, he actually ended up siding with the Mexicans. And after he showed that he was, down for the culture and that he was cool, they allowed him to join their meditation group. And in the meditation group, there were no whites allowed. He was the only one because he was cool and he was open-minded. There was blacks and Mexicans, and I think he said one Asian guy. And in that meditation group, they had some sweat lodges going on and stuff like that. And I think it was called like the Gladiator School, and that's where he got the name Esoteric Gladiator. But it was in jail where he learned a lot about meditation and spirituality. So he had a fun time, or I wouldn't say fun time, but he had a very interesting and enlightening time in jail. And it was in there where he learned how to fight and stand up for himself and find self-confidence, and also learn those early aspects of spirituality in his life. But after he got out, he didn't really carry that on. And for some time, he kind of fell back into the worldly ways, being a tattoo artist, living in the LA area. So he'll pick up back there where, basically in his late 20s and 30s, he fell back into the partying and all of that. And then he was later diagnosed with PTSD. So sorry again for the bad audio, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you. Yeah, it kind of seems to happen that way for a lot of us. It's like, this is actually an idea that I had recently. It's like, especially in today's manosphere or whatever, we always hear the terms alpha and beta or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like every alpha was somewhat of a beta at some point in their life.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the Liver King guy.
George St. Pierre.
Yeah, or like the Liver King guy that, is all over social media right now. Like, he just got put out there. He was using steroids the whole time or whatever. And
I kind of figured he might have been, but I didn't really care because a lot of his message was really good, actually.
That's what he said. He was like, he kind of just was digging the hole deeper and deeper, because he realized it wasn't about his message, but he dug the hole too deep. But his story, I heard his story, and he said that he was getting bullied and beat up all the time. So it's like, you see this alpha male, but he was a beta at some point. So it's like, they're just social constructs. We were all kids at one point. We all had to learn how to become strong and confident. And some people just never learned that, or never took it upon themselves to learn that, and that's why they're beta or whatever.
Yeah, I had PTSD. I went and I took a couple of tests, and it confirmed that I had PTSD. And I remember I was like, I need to do like Tai Chi or meditation or yoga or something. I got to get back into my spiritual aspects of life, because I was smoking a lot of weed and drinking a lot back then, and just kind of like womanizing, and I just lost my job. My grandma just died. My lady just left me. So I was like living a country music song in real life. Yeah. And then I remember like it was like smoking weed was supposed to help. So I hadn't smoked weed for months at that point. So I went back to smoking weed. It didn't help. It made it worse. And then I woke up and I was having another nervous breakdown. And right when it happened, my buddy called me. And it was like divine intervention, and he's like, you don't sound like you're doing good. And I'm like, I'm not, bro. I'm really going through it. And he's like, well, that's why I called you. I went and I did this 10-day silent meditation called Vipassana, and you were the first person I thought of. And I just wanted to call you and tell you about it. And so I was like, bet, I'm going to do it. I'd heard about it a decade before, but I was like, I could never do that. Yeah. So 2 weeks later, I'm on this train to North Fork, California, which is right outside of Fresno. And you sit for 10 days in silence. No reading, no writing, no phones, no computers. You're there to meditate for 10 days straight in silence, no talking. And you meditate for an hour at a time. You get 5 minutes to a half an hour break, depending. The half an hour is being breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Otherwise, you're there to meditate for an hour with a 5-minute break, hour, 5-minute break, hour, half an hour break, lunch, or 45-minute break, or whatever. And that's for 10 days straight. And I remember the 4th day I had a breakdown. Like I hadn't cried in years. And then on that 4th day, like, and they say like there's a video called the Dhamma Brothers, and it's about how they brought Vipassana into prisons. And on the 4th day, like all these murderers and rapists, they all break down and they start crying.
What the heck?
Yeah, just dude, you can't run from your subconscious anymore, your higher self, because you spend 4 days in your higher self and your subconscious cleaning your mind, and you don't even know why you're crying. It breaks you. And I was crying for like 45 minutes straight.
This like a temple or something?
Yeah. Okay. In California.
And how does that moment go from like speaking to like, all right, now I can't talk? Like,
I felt like some aspects of that was harder than prison.
Damn.
Yeah.
How did it go though? Were they like, all right, like you can't talk starting now?
Starting now. But like for me, I was like, man, this is going to be hard. But then I seen like there was 50 dudes and 50 girls, and I was like, I ain't going to be the motherfucker to talk. Right? I'll get through this. It was so hard, bro. Damn. One of the hardest things I ever did, for sure. And I've done it 3 times.
Really? What's like the longest?
10 days.
Oh, just 10 days.
Yeah, but then I did like a couple of 3-day ones, and I served a 10-day where you can talk, but you can't talk a lot. But you're serving in a kitchen, but you still have to meditate for mandatory 3 hours a day. But the end result of that is when I left. So for 20 years straight, all I had was nightmares, no good dreams. Every once in a while, I'd have a sex dream. But by the 7th day in the Vipassana meditation center, I started to have flying dreams. I was like flying in my dreams again. I hadn't had one of those since I was like a little kid, since I was like 11 or something. Then within 2 weeks after leaving, I had kept up an hour every morning. I would meditate and I would pray for like 5 minutes afterwards. And then I started feeling this feeling in my chest that I hadn't felt since I was a little kid. And I realized, oh, that's joy. Shit, I feel joy again, right?
Yeah.
I'm not having nightmares anymore. I don't feel like I'm on red alert all the time. I don't feel this tension everywhere.
Survival mode.
Yeah, survival mode.
Do you think that came from you being in jail at a young age, or was it even before that?
Before it was my dad. My dad was his dad was worse with him, but he was pretty abusive with me, but he wasn't as bad as his dad was with him. And my dad has gotten sober. He's like over 20 years. He's I love him. He's a good dude. We still see things a lot differently. He thinks I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist, and I think he's insane for not seeing what the government's doing.
Yeah, it was similar vibe with my dad. I'm the youngest of four, and he was a by the hand kind of father, But things have chilled out over the years, so I definitely understand that.
And I don't regret abuse. I don't regret fighting. I don't regret none of it. Like there's a lot of injuries in my body. Like there's a lot of things that haven't healed, but I don't regret it. I still work out. I still, do all that stuff. And even with the Vipassana thing, even though I went back to partying here and there, I still always, would still meditate, and that changed. I don't have PTSD anymore. I'm still very cautious and aware of my surroundings.
Yeah.
But now if I have dreams and premonitions, I know it's real because there's no interference. There's no static in the field for me because I got rid of that vibration that I was carrying,
Oh, yeah. It's dispelled it from within.
When I did the native services in jail, which was Sweat Lodge, which was deep, intense work, it connected me to the earth, the mother. And I did that for over a year before I got out. And that was deep work. That I feel like that connected me to the mother and the physical aspect of life. And then the meditation connected me more to the self and the spiritual, And then hallucinogens connected me a lot to metaphysical, spiritual as well. I don't know.
Just it's all underlying.
It's all connected.
Yeah. The underlyingness, the oneness.
Yeah.
For sure. So you did 6 years in jail that time, and that was from
1993 to 1999. So in the gang era.
The gang era.
That was keep in mind, my mom's grandma is from the Canary Islands. And my grandpa looks like you. My great-great-grandpa looks like you. They're from Morocco, basically, right?
Okay.
So it was
just won the World Cup.
Island off freaking Africa, right? My great-great-grandma looked like she was mulatto. And my great-grandpa, who I knew, Jerome, he looked half black, too. Big lips, big nose, afro. And then my dad's mom was native. She was half native. She was born on a reservation. And her drunk native father left her to die in a bathtub. And so I have a lot of love for the native people. I have a lot of love for everybody, but I also know that humanity is humanity. And I don't fall, what I used to fall into with the native stuff was that white people were all evil, these people are evil. And I'm like, bruh, I know about the Mayans and the Aztec. I know about the Plains Indians. I know about all these people and the wars and what they were doing to each other before the Europeans even got here. So, and that's even if that history is true, because I believe that all man was here before Columbus, if Columbus was even real, CC 33, if that guy was even real.
Yeah.
But human sacrificing, robbing, raping, pillaging. They were doing it to each other, and it's like, I'm not saying that what Whitey did wasn't evil, but what I'm saying is, go to the reservations now. They're still doing horrible things to each other, and it's like, well, they're impoverished, and this, yeah, kind of, but then you have the casinos, and then like, it's like, we as a species, we can't escape human nature, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tribalism in Africa, tribalism in South America, tribalism in ancient Europe that were indigenous people too, that nobody ever talks about, you know?
Yeah. Tribalism still exists, man, just in different forms.
And now we have it with politics and LGTB and whatever.
It's all tribalism, bro. Okay, so yeah, I mean now you have a podcast, the Esoteric Gladiator, and now you're deep within the conspiracy facts, reality. And so when did that start? When did you start really like getting into the information of things?
So I got into conspiracies the day 9/11 happened, which is crazy because like I said, I'm psychic. I had 2 dreams a week before 9/11 happened. One, I was at a party in Malibu on this hill above the ocean, which I'd never been to any mansions in Malibu before. Yeah. And I saw these 3 military helicopters coming towards the party. There's only 3 of them. Huh. And I was like telling everybody, oh, but they're going to crash into the party. We got to run. And I ran into the mansion and then I just started going up all these stairs. And then it turned into like these remote control helicopters hitting this mansion.
Wait, oh, this was a dream.
This was a dream. Okay, yeah. And then the second dream was I was in an airport in line and walking through the metal detector with people, and then the baggage claim thing had these black bags on them, and we had to lay on the bags and get our pictures taken before we got on the plane. And then we got on the plane, and then the plane exploded. I don't know what it exploded by, but the plane exploded. But then later I realized, oh, those were body bags they were taking pictures of. A week later, 9/11 happened. So I thought that was weird, right? Yeah. And then the day that it happened, I was like, 4 planes got hijacked. We've never even had 1 plane get hijacked. And then it was the president was reading in school to kids. I didn't know about the book. I didn't know about the chants. I didn't know about none of that stuff. I was like, so wait, these evil terrorists hijacked 4 planes. We've never even had 1. And the president is reading to children? I've never seen a president in a school. What? So were they like trying to make our president look like he's like some noble, heroic savior and these are evil terrorists? I thought that was really weird. And I didn't trust it. I saw it as a psychological operation. I didn't know about any of the other conspiracies surrounding 9/11. Yeah. And so instantly, I remembered that a few days before or a week or 2 before, they were talking about how they lost trillions of dollars. And I remember seeing that when it happened, because my girlfriend's grandfather watched news all the time, so I would get roped into watching it. And I remember being like, this is bullshit. Like, if you and me did something like that, if we stole $2,000, we'd be in jail for half of our lives. These guys lost 2-point-something trillion. And I tied that in, and then the next day or 2 days later or whatever, they came and they said that they found the passports in the rubble, and I was like, we did this to ourselves, there's no way. And I remember arguing with my families, and then 9 months later, all these documentaries came out, and I already didn't trust it. I thought it was an inside job. I thought it was really weird and that the government was working. Yeah. For whatever, I didn't know why they were doing it, but then I got turned on to David Icke and Alex Jones and, William Cooper and Jordan Maxwell, and that, I want to say probably a year after 9/11 was my red pill. A year after was when I started to wake up, but I really got deep into it 15 years ago. I mean, I've been dropping red pills and rainbow pills on people since MySpace.
Oh, shit.
Back when 65% of the internet was arguing with me about satanic pedophilia. I remember my family members arguing with me at Thanksgiving over a decade ago, and they're all Christians, and I was like, dude, all your heroes and celebrities, everybody you're talking about right now, they're all fucking satanic pedophiles. And they were arguing with me. I was like, read your book. It talks about all this shit. It talks about the synagogue of serpents. And like, I was already getting deep into this shit. And now they're starting to see it. So now they ask me questions. But, so yeah, I've been...
It's 2001, so you were still in your 20s.
I was still in my 20s. That was a year after I got out, little over a year and a half after I got out. And then the podcast I started within a few weeks of COVID. I was like, I've got this podcast equipment. I said my New Year's resolution was to start this podcast. I'm going to do it. And I have a mind full of my mind is an encyclopedia, bro.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
So before 2020, so your 20s, you're in jail, 9/11 happens, that wakes you up. You get out, you kind of teeter off of the spiritual life, but the party life.
Party and tattooing, and get into tattooing.
So then your 30s, I'm assuming it was mostly the tattooing stuff.
Yeah, tattooing and meditation and living in Hawaii. I lived in Hawaii for 5 years. I did organic farming over there, which was another good way for me to ground into the earth. I hiked barefooted all the time. I drank water out of, lava rocks out of the reservoirs. I meditated. There's periods where I did religiously an hour in the morning and an hour at night for 8 months at a time, drinking ayahuasca and just doing racing canoes and touching the earth and talking to plants and shit. And really, what happened in Hawaii was I was gifted with natural law. The earth. I thought I was talking to the plants the whole time. I did another 10-day Vipassana after I left Hawaii. And after I left, I was like, oh, dude, no, the plants talk back to you, bro. Like, so now with everything that's happening on the earth, if you listen to my podcast, Relations, I can apply, this happens in nature, this happens in human nature. This is the way it works with the earth. Human nature is a reflection of Mother Nature. We don't get to escape this, even though we think we're so disconnected and we're so civilized. Civilization is a computer program that's been downloaded into this possible simulation of Earth realm or dimension, and but we're all subservient to the laws of nature. And I learned that from the islands of Hawaii, from Kauai, the Garden Island, and Maui.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a book all about that right now. That's what my third book's going to be about.
What is it?
It's going to be about consciousness and the simulated reality.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm really into that lately, bro. I would love to, yeah.
I just finished chapter 1.
I've been thinking about doing that too, writing a book.
Yeah, it's fascinating shit, man. I've been really, really fascinated by it lately, and all the information has just been coming to me through different ways, so I know that I need to write this book. But, all right, so you're 30, so you're traveling, basically living out of your car. You're a gypsy, as you said.
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did you become a gypsy?
So that first happened, so before I moved to Hawaii, after the meditation, my world opened. I started making more money. I don't even know how I did that. I started traveling. I went to Spain. I went to frickin' South by Southwest in Texas. I went to the Rainbow Gathering in Washington, and I just started traveling all over. And then I went to Hawaii, and then I wound up living in Hawaii. And then after Hawaii, I started traveling again. I did 16 months of traveling all over, tattooing all over, and then I wound up in Washington owning a tattoo shop, and then just training MMA and doing that and tattooing and still meditating pretty religiously. And then a few years ago, I got into breath work, and I want to say like 5-6 years ago, I got into cold showers. I got into the cold thing. I got into the cold before the breath work, but the breath work is what led me to the cold. But the breath work was too intense for me, but I've since got back into the breath work.
Why was the breath work too intense?
I don't know. It was just too intense for me. And then I got to this place where I was like, my buddy was doing it. And he's like, bro, you need to go do the breath work. And then so I started doing it. And then I really started doing it. I started facing the uncomfortable parts of it. And then I realized, wow, this is profound. This can take you to a state that takes a half an hour of meditation. You can get there in 10 minutes with breathing.
Really?
And then if you go from breathing into meditation, like I like to do breathing into visual meditations and watch reality come together before me. Damn. After that. So the original traveling was after Hawaii, and then this second time was once they started pushing vaccine passports in Washington. I was like, I'm out of here. And I closed down my tattoo shop, and I just hit the road in my Honda Element, which is which is a really good story. Before this journey, I really wanted a Honda Element, and I couldn't find one. I mean, either they were hours away, or they had super high mileage, or they were really expensive. And I was just like, man, then I'm gonna have to get a minivan or something. But I remember I woke up at like 3:33 in the morning, and I was like, between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. is the best time for visual meditations and manifestation. That's just after the witching hour. Yeah. And so I went and I sat up and I started doing visual meditations of finding a Honda Element or a car. And I fell back asleep, woke up the next morning, made my smoothie, hit the road. I was driving out of town to go find a car, and there was a used car lot off to my left, and there was a Honda Element sitting in the parking lot. And I pulled over. I mean, we're talking less than 12 hours. I pull over, I hit the guy up. I'm like, how much mileage does he have? He's like, oh, it's got 99,000 miles. And I was like, oh my God, perfect. Every Element was like 150 to 250,000 miles. I was like, how much is it? He's like, it's 12 grand. I was like, what year is it? He's like, oh, it's a 2007. He's like, and we can do a trade-in for your car. I was like, well, what's the trade-in? So it winds up, I only have to pay 6 grand, and I trade my car in, and I get this Element today. So within 24 hours, visual manifestation happens, right?
Yeah, that's bad.
But eventually what I did was I took off from Washington. I left Halloween Day in, was that 2020? Or 2021? Yeah. Well, I left not this last Halloween, but the Halloween before.
Okay.
And then I just took off, and then I've been all over. And I met you like 5 months later down in San Diego. I was out at my buddy's house in Carlsbad, and I had just heard your podcast on Tinfoil Hat, and I was like, oh, this dude's on the level. I need to hit this guy up. And literally 2 days later, I'm kicking it with this guy. The deeper I've got into the metaphysical, the more I've seen things happen. And like we were talking about simulation, like Mandela effects really play into that. I remember 7 or 8 years ago being in Ross looking at Fruit of a Loom, being like, why did they change this logo? I love the original cornucopia logo. I remember that in real time, bro. I remember that. I remember Mandela died in prison. I remember that.
Wait, that's where it all started, right? Mandela? So
it did.
Is he alive?
I think he's still alive. But the rumor was that he died in fucking prison. I remember that.
Crazy.
There's a lot of men. The Berenstein Bears was with an I and an E, not an A. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then you have like Islam that talks about the jinn.
Yeah.
That they can change physical reality, which is why this certain sect of Islam memorizes the Quran. Because they can change the physical, but they can't change the mental.
Damn.
So, but they're not the only ancient civilization that talks about creatures being able to change physical reality, but not being able to change mental.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the jinn, those of the fire, right?
Yeah, which is liquor is fire, water, jinn.
Shit.
Spirits, alcohol, alcohol, jinn. It's all linked to,
So, all right, so COVID happened, and then you started your podcast, and then you started the Gypsy Life?
Yeah, I started the Gypsy Life about a year and a half after the podcast, and
Did you have like a house or apartment before then?
Yeah, I was renting a house in Port Angeles, Washington, and I had a tattoo shop out there, and I was killing it. I was making a ton of fucking money, more money than. I mean, tattooing, it's feast or famine. Sometimes I'll make $4 grand in a week. Sometimes I won't make that in 4 months. But a lot of that's my own shit. Because if you look at my tattoos, I've been able to travel the world off my tattoos. So clearly, I know my worth in tattooing. I get down to business in tattooing. I was just in, sometimes I charge people $100 an hour. Or I was just in Alaska, I was charging $200 an hour. So it all depends on where I'm at. If I feel like working, if I feel like traveling and learning, and
yeah. what was that decision like when you decided, you know what, I want to go be a gypsy? Like, did you,
so
what was that like?
It was like when I did Hawaii, because when I was in LA at that moment, bro, I had my own private little studio in LA. I was killing it. I was single. I had all these girlfriends that I knew, and like everybody, everywhere I went, I knew people. Like I got free drinks at different bars. I tattooed a lot of the bars. Like I was hooked up in LA. And the thought of going to this island where I only knew one person or a couple of people was terrifying. And I thought, what kind of man are you? Can you do this? Well, it's time to fucking find out. So it was like a beginning of a hero's journey for me. And that's what I did. And then it was the same thing when I left Washington. It was like, dude, it's time to go. It's time to go see what the hell is out there. It's time to just throw yourself in the fire and see what you're made of. And which I feel like it's super crucial for us as human beings to do that, is we get so comfortable where we're at, and what are you made of? Like are you a they would say with the sword, you can you get put through the fire, you get ground down, you get put through the fire again, and then you get sharpened and quenched and all that shit. And you got to go through all this turmoil to become a sword. And it's like, I want to be a sword. Like I will go through. Back in the day when I was young, I subconsciously put myself through the fire without knowing. And I believe that I chose this lifetime. I believe that I chose my parents and all of it. So subconsciously I put myself through the fire without even knowing. And now I consciously put myself through the fire through meditation, exercise, cold therapy, hot therapy, breath, hallucinogens. I don't want to do any of this shit. I don't want to do this shit. I really don't. A lot of times I don't want to drive an hour to go see somebody. I do it, right? Because I know the juice is worth the squeeze. And I know that you've got to face these uncomfortable aspects of yourself. Like society, they always want to take the easy way out. And I always tell people, dude, that monster you're running from, it's going to show up on your doorstep in your 50s, 60s, or 70s. You might as well face it while you're young and you still have vitality and you can weather the storm, because you're eventually going to have to face that monster.
Yeah, that's strong, man. For sure. So did you have a lot of stuff you had to sell and get rid of?
I sold stuff. I gave shit away. I've done that multiple times, bro. Like, there's people that they talk about abundance and they're fronting. And then there's people that don't have a lot that talk about abundance and they're real life about it. And there's so much shit that I buy and I wind up giving away. And I've done that every time I've left somewhere. But then again, it's like, when you go to jail or when you got to go to boys' homes, because the last time I went to jail wasn't my only time being institutionalized. Boys' homes and shit like that. I've lost everything I've owned over a dozen times. So now it's got to where, okay, well, I can either lose it or give it away. And, there's shit that I buy that's brand new that I'm just like, I don't really like it, and I give it away, right? Yeah, it's hard, but it's not. It's like, I know that I'm a goddamn wizard, dude. I was put in this dimension to find the magic in life through the tragic, and one door closes, 3 more open. I believe that, and I live by that, and it's true, bro.
Yeah.
It's 100% true.
I think so too.
That's why I'm starting to lean into the simulation thing, and I'm really starting to, because this is where I really leaned into it, because I talked to you a little bit about the millennial reign when I first met you and our first podcast. It didn't come out well, so we scrapped it. But lo and behold, a few weeks later, you showed up at Annie Hardy's place from Empath of the Least Resistance, 4 blocks away from my sister's house. So I was like, I'm coming over. I'm going to do what do you call that? Like a renegade podcast. I'm going to surprise him, and hopefully he'll have time to do it. And I was like, Eddie, it was the first one we did. It was horrible, and I was interrupting you. And this time, let me just interview you about the Anunnaki. And you're like, let's do it. And so it was about the Anunnaki, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And we talked a little bit about your book, but I was more fascinated with the Anunnaki. And with the simulation, it kind of goes in with the millennial reign in architecture, because I'm like looking at ancient architecture, and I've known for years if you look down above it, it looks like it's a motherboard. Well, if you look at a city, it looks like a motherboard, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know the shape of the Earth, but I trust the flat earthers way more than I trust the fucking NASA or the Globers. My senses tell me that if this reality is what it is, that we are in a flat plane with a dome above it. That's what the ancient people that built all this architecture told us. And that's from globally around the world, or over the earth, right? The four corners of the earth, they said that we were under a dome. The natives call it Turtle Island, the Navajos, the Incas, the Asians, the Egyptians, the Romans, the Vikings, they all said we were under a dome. Well, okay, if we are under a dome, that's a motherfucking screen, and this is a motherboard. Is it possible that this is a simulation in between? Seems highly probable to me, bro.
Shit.
That is my theory. Nobody else said that shit.
You heard
it first from the Esoteric Gladiator with Esoteric Eddie.
Hell yeah, man. Okay, so, and now you're in your 40s?
I'm about to be 47 in January 9th. I'm a Capricorn.
So, aside from the simulation theory, what else are you working on, or what else has got you perplexed, you know?
Just that, you know, I'm starting to transition out of this darker conspiracy shit. I mean, shit, you and me could do a podcast next week on satanic cults and fucking murder it, bro. Like, I know that's how I was reading about satanic cults in jail, and the common thread with all of those books was that it wasn't high schoolers that were burning and killing cats. It was lawyers, doctors, and politicians and police commissioners that were members of satanic society. So when I really got into it later in life, I was like, oh, that's why all these books said it before I was even into it. But I'm trying to transition out of the problems of society, which are the conspiracies, right?
Yeah.
More into the solutions of society, which is meditation, visual meditation, prayer, diet, exercise, fasting, water fasting, dry fasting, no food, no water. I did that twice for 2 days while I was in jail. Breathing exercises, cold therapy, hot therapy, martial arts, hallucinogens, which I'm not advocating to do all the time because I barely ever do them because I'm terrified to do them, but I face that fear. I make myself do it, and I learn from it every time. The solutions, natural law, facing these alternative histories that you bring to light, you know, with your books and the topics that you put up, and really acknowledging that this world is not what we thought it was, and neither is the history of it, and to bring, which I believe is encoded within our DNA. We have cellular memory, which is what I think why they're attacking the DNA now with the jabs and things like that, is because the DNA, it's locked within the strands of our code. It's locked within the caduceus.
Yeah.
Right? It's locked within the caduceus. They want our blood. That's why in all the ancient teachings, it's about our blood, because our blood has the cellular memory of the Most High, God the Father. And to put that together, we have to connect to the Mother Earth, and that masculine feminine polarity comes together with our cellular memory, and now we're remembering shit like that we're talking about now, and we're getting so deep within it that it's almost like, yeah, we can learn this shit, but then you become like a teacher in it, right? You become like, you just get to a level where you're like, oh, this isn't my first time being on this earth. I've been here before.
Yeah.
And before, I used to just jerk off to the thought of reincarnation. And once I got deep, and not literally jerk off, but mental masturbation to the thought of reincarnation. And now it's like, after all this years of meditation, I know I've been here before. most of the people I connect with, me and him were probably sitting around a fire in ancient Rome talking about, well, the Senate has gone crazy. They're fucking children. How can we bring back the ways of the ancients or whatever? Who knows, you know?
Have you had like memories, flashes, or?
Oh, absolutely. Through, I've had that through my buddy. He was a hypnotherapist, and my friend's mother, she was also a hypnotherapist, and they took me through it, dude. Past lives, unbelievable. In one of these past lives, and it was right before I moved to Hawaii and became a farmer. In this past life, I lived in the Midwest, and I was a farmer on the prairies, and I had a son, I had a dog, and a wife, and I was dying in bed, and I was a farmer, and months later I became a farmer in Hawaii. And then when I was in Hawaii, I had all these past life things on ayahuasca, and then I had the awareness of being eternal.
Oh shit.
And so, and then just dreams too. The dreams bring me past lives and things like that. And knowing that I was a gladiator in past lives, I've been native, I've been a Viking, I've been ancient Hawaiian, I've been Lemurian, high priest Lemurian, and a lot of lifetimes you don't remember, you forget, and you got to go back, and you, for whatever reason, you got to. Sometimes you just go up into eternity and you consciously choose to come back and experience the drama of the 3D.
Yeah. I don't know why we do, but we do, you know. But staying on the farmer thing, so one thing that's also interesting about you is you've been somewhat preparing for Armageddon and stocking up on foods.
Yeah, I have a lot of food stored up in my car, and I eat it and I share it and I still buy stuff. Like the whole thing with what I think is going to happen is, like, if I was going to tell people to prepare, I would say get months worth of storable food and get microgreen seeds, which you can grow in a week. Cilantro takes about 2.5 to 3 weeks to grow, but you can grow microgreens in a week, and you can get a big ass bag for dirt cheap, and it'll last you a year. And that's a good survival food, because if shit goes down, which I'm starting to lean to believe that it's going to go down for some people, and for other people it's not going to go down that way.
Yeah.
You know? I no longer believe in duality. I even think that that's like a program slipped into mankind to keep us locked in this state of, it's got to, you know, it's a balance. It's like, is it though? It's like, even if you look in nature, like, deers aren't getting eaten by wolves all the time. In fact, most of the time they're eating plants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Some of them are living pretty chill.
So I think even duality is a construct that's been downloaded into this simulation or whatever it is. And I believe that it's more like 60-40 or 65-35 or 70-30 even, you know?
Yeah.
We actually live in more positive than negative.
So it's not duality, it's kinda-ality.
Or maybe it was duality, but something shifted in 2020, dude. The Ethiopian calendar said that was the real 2012, and I believe it.
2012 is here. 2012 is now.
Yeah. Just, you know, with all that stuff, I think people need to get out of the cities, and if they want to be near a city, move 20, 30 minutes out of a city. And when you deal with wars, like world wars and stuff like that, where is the drama? It's always in the cities. Look at what happened in Europe during World War II, and all these areas down in South America and Central America and wherever in China. It's all happening in cities. It ain't happening out in the country. You know, if you got chickens and goats and a cow to milk, and you start to realize the way of the future is the way of the past. It's what our ancient ancestors taught us. And we have a lot of knowledge, technical knowledge, and we know about Tartaria and all the real technology, which somebody's got that knowledge out here. It's in our DNA. Somebody, the guy that created the water running car.
Yeah.
In the new world, we go back to the old world and we unleash those old technologies. We don't have to live like cavemen, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Or like a blend of it, you know what I mean? Like we can just, yeah, we don't have to live the way we're living now. You know what I mean? Like, it's all malleable. It's all malleable, but we're just leading ourselves with this technocracy and getting more and more emotionless and just boring and lame, you know? It could be super fun and regenerative. That's what's crazy, is that all of this could be regenerative, you know? And
there is no lack, bro.
Yeah.
This earth, and I'm telling you, being in Hawaii, the earth is just, it's in constant state of growth and proliferation and flourishing.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what they say.
When I travel this country, 70% of this country is empty. That means there's nobody living there. That's farmland right there. Right?
Yeah.
You know, climate change, the climate's always changing. There was an ice age, there was multiple floods. The climate always changes. Like the whole concept of like this lack of and it just doesn't exist, man. It's always to keep us in this state of fear and terror. And 2020 was like the pinnacle of this tipping point that propelled people into a state of fear. And it woke a lot of people up. 12 years ago on MySpace, 65-70% of people were arguing with me about the things I post. Now 65 to 70% of the internet is conspiracies.
Yeah.
So that tells me people are starting to get it.
Starting to get it. Yeah. So if it's not duality, then it's almost like these...
It's multidimensionality.
Oh, shit.
And I did a painting of that while I lived in Maui. I'm going to show it to you.
So do you think there are two opposing powers though, like a good and an evil, or is it the grand good?
I think there's a spectrum, you know?
Or is it the grand good that's dropping these certain epics in time, like 9/11, 2020, for the awakenings?
So yeah, what I think, like, I liked Donald Trump as a president until COVID hit, and then I thought, this guy is one of the worst presidents we ever had in history. He became the world's biggest vaccine salesman, and he still is. The thing with the vaccines is, there's two ways I can look at it. Because I have a conscience, I would never do this to humanity. But I also realize humanity is a consciousness itself. So people were given a choice. You can take this vaccine and, you know, go back to normal. Or you can be like weirdos like us that are just like, motherfucker, I'll go down kicking and screaming before I get that. You can torture me, I ain't taking it, son. Yeah. It's a matter of principle and a lot of other things. But he gave people a choice. So, yeah, I don't agree with that choice, what he did, but that's people's choice, dude. You know, you can choose to trust Big Pharma and the government and trust your teachers that all work for the government, and that's your choice. And when you get burned, hey, you had a choice. I don't agree with the way they burned you, but hey, I also know nature's a cruel bitch, and that deers that don't pay attention, they get eaten by the wolves. And that's the way nature works. And most of the left loves to pretend like they care about the earth and climate change and this and that. But it's like, do you really? Because you don't really follow any of the laws of nature. And when people like me try to present the laws of nature, you call me a racist Nazi and attack me. When really, I'm for the betterment of all mankind, not just small groups. I want all of man, from transgenders to blacks to cops to, you know, Mexicans to, you know, straight white people. I want everyone to benefit from this overly abundant earth that we live in. And
yeah, I'm the same way, man. It's like we could really be living in a really cool, just giant garden. You know what I mean? Like the entire world could just be one big giant garden, and we can all just be just kicking it and living off of it.
I'm gonna do this for the camera.
Hey.
I'm gonna do this for you, bro. What's the back of my? What does my shoulder say?
It says heaven on earth.
Heaven on earth. That's what I'm here for, Dad. But yeah, I think it could be the overarching, like you said earlier, it could be the greater good, bringing in teachers like Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and all these people to show us. Because when you look at politicians, they are the most enslaved.
Yeah.
You tell me Joe Biden's free? Hell no. That fool's wearing an earpiece and he's reading a prompter.
Yeah.
These guys are the most enslaved people in humanity. They are so enslaved they are willing to destroy the entire earth to create a technocracy and launch, gun-toting robots on humanity and make us eat insects. Like, what kind of scummy piece of shit wants to do that? A slave does that.
Yeah, they got parasites in their brains, man.
Exactly.
At this point. And I met with the leader of the Rosicrucian Fellowship from Oceanside recently, and he had an interesting point to make. He said that, there is no duality, really. That's the illusion, but there's only one power. And that one power creates the duality as a teaching thing. It's a ping pong thing, kind of, it bounces you back and forth between the light and the dark to learn the lesson. And we talk about angels and demons a lot in the truther community or whatever, but nobody really sees angels and demons. I'm sure people have seen them, or whatever, but all we really do see, without a doubt, is each other. And so the closest things to these demons that we have in life are these parasitical politicians. And the closest things that we have in life to angels are people who live in abundance and give back.
Monks and, people donating and helping children and fucking weirdos like us that are, it's like I said, I didn't start my podcast for money. I don't make anything off of it. I do it because mankind needs to awaken to their true potential. I see us all as very, vessels of potential, and that we've just been led astray from the garden. And, people like us that are willing to go through the darkness to find the light, it's our duty as harbingers of this earth, of eternity, to bring this, because we've unlocked these aspects of ourselves through lots of hard work, to share this stuff with people. And we are just human beings. My life path number is 33. I'm a master teacher, but I'm also not a fool. I know that I have to be a master student. And master numbers we don't get like, because we're master numbers, we get like an easy go. No, that doesn't mean, that means you have way more responsibility. It means God's going to put the weight of the world on you. And then eventually you got to let that shit go, because what do they say? Stare long into the darkness stares long back at you.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So now it's like, I'll still talk about conspiracies, and I'm down. I'm really trying to transition into solutions more than conspiracies. And I know about crazy shit,
Yeah.
but I don't think these guys are going to win. I think it's impossible. I think they're fighting nature. And
yeah, I always say, how can you win when there's no war really going on? How can you win when the other side, the highest power that is known, isn't even fighting? There's no war. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're not even fighting God, because God's not fighting back. He's just watching it all happen, the grand creator.
Yeah, he's just like, he's just sitting back, and he's like, you got these people that they're the wealthiest people in the world. They own the most property. They have the most corporations. They have access to the most people and, material possessions. And they're still not happy. They're trying to invade the lives of people like you and me. And now they're trying to get rid of our dogs because of their carbon footprint. And they're eating, meat and all this stuff. And it's like, meat's good for you. I'm sorry, vegans, but you guys are always looking for a superfood. It's called meat. Okay? It's what made our minds expand. And I've done all the plant-based vegan shit. And, it's like, these guys are so rotten. Yeah. Nothing they get will ever make them happy. So even if they wind up in power, what are they going to do? They're going to turn on each other.
Yeah. Just going to eat each other eventually. This has been enlightening.
Well, it's been enlightening. It always is.
Did you got anything else to say to the people?
Mind, body, spirit. Love, healing, and truth. Meditation. Prayer. Diet. Exercise. Breath work. Sauna. Cold therapy, hallucinogens, time with family, time in nature, time with friends, learning, artwork, music, all that shit will take you to the next level, and to nurture the animals and the children, and, you know, come to grips that everything that we've been taught, every bit, is a lie since we were small children, and that the world is a fascinating place full of magic and wonder, like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, the Dark Crystal, freaking Return of the Jedi, or anything like that. We are in a arcane world, and we are magicians, and we need to own that. Oh, one more thing. We unconsciously create our reality all the time. Consciously create your reality. You're unconsciously, I have to work today, and okay, well, when you get into a shower, wash the darkness of work off you and consciously set that intention. Consciously set an intention that you visualize yourself going on a hike or connecting with your family. You know what I mean? Consciously create your reality, because you're unconsciously doing it all the time. And follow me on Esoteric Gladiator podcast, and keep following Esoteric Eddie.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching. Definitely follow the homie Jeremy, Esoteric Gladiator. And yeah, namaste.
Namaste.